And joining us now is Felix Ike, the co-founder and CTO for Moniepoint. Felix, it's so nice to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. So it's been just over 10 years since you and your co-founder launched Moniepoint back in 2015. Can you give us a little bit of the history of how you went from a startup to now one of the unicorns on the continent?
All right, thank you for having me. So Moniepoint was founded in 2015. At the time, we were called TeamApt, and we were primarily building solutions for banks, automating their back-end processes, settlement, reconciliation, disputes, and for some banks, we helped build their digital banking platforms, the mobile and the web. We did that for, I think, about 3 years, and in those 3 years, we were able to capture, I would say, 90% of the banks in Nigeria, right? While we were doing that, we saw another opportunity to capture the underserved and underbanked population in Nigeria. And this was a time when we pivoted. I think this was around 2018. And the first product we built was an agency banking platform called Moniepoint, right? Agency banking is a banking model where you have human agents you could have them at street corners, providing banking services using POS terminals. So people can walk up to them and carry out financial transactions. The goal we had at the back of our mind then was to make banking available to people regardless of where they are in Nigeria, right? Even if you're in a very remote village, we wanted you to have access to a very reliable banking service and also a very reliable customer service. These were the two things we had at the back of our minds when we built the product. And we went forward doing that. Eventually, we realized that these agents that we were powering were also businesses. Some of them had shops, they had things to sell. They needed means of accepting payment outside of agency banking. They had other financial needs, and nobody was really paying attention to them. So we felt, okay, we could actually bank these people. And for us to do that, we needed to have a banking license. So this was the first attempt towards becoming a bank. So we got our MFV banking license, and this allowed us to build more solutions for these customers. So once we got to the point of providing them banking services, the next goal became building a one-stop shop for these businesses. So you have everything you need to run your business. If you want access to payment, you want access to credits, you want access to business management tools, we want Moniepoint to be that one-stop shop where once you sign up, you have everything you need to run your business. Now, fast forward to 2020, 2021, during the COVID lockdown, most people were indoors, obviously, so nobody had the opportunity to go out and transact with cash. So most transactions moved to digital payment platforms, and Moniepoint was well positioned to support customers at that time. Also in 2023, there was a cash scarcity in Nigeria, which further pushed more people towards transacting transacting online. And being that our systems, our services were really, really reliable, people started, gaining confidence in our product. And I think these were the periods when we actually achieved a significant scale. Right now, Moniepoint processes about $22 billion worth of transactions monthly across 1 billion transactions. And we process over 80% of the POS transactions in the country. And we've also disbursed, I think, around 1 trillion naira worth of loans to small businesses. And all of this is positioning ourselves to make sure that our businesses succeed, our customers succeed, because the primary objective of Moniepoint is to help our businesses succeed. So far, that's the journey. Right now, we're at the point where we're trying to also scale into other countries, but this is how the story started, and this is how it's going so far.
I do want to talk to you about some of those expansion plans, but I wanted to touch on the unicorn status that I was mentioning, because we talk about it. There's obviously quite a lot more unicorns in different parts of the world, but in Africa, you really are part of a group of just a few, and it's very much concentrated in fintechs and digital financial services. How much weight do you put behind unicorn status for yourself? And do you think we'll continue to maybe see more unicorns on the continent, specifically just in this sector?
So valuation is good, is nice. It's a way to validate the work you've done, but we're not primarily driven by that valuation, right? The core goal in Moniepoint is to provide value, both for our customers and for our investors. And that has been what has been driving us. In our last raise, the quantum was about $200 million, and I think this was what actually got us across the unicorn status. But before then, we've been doing significant amount of work to service our customers. So, to answer the question on whether we should expect more unicorns, I think I'm hopeful that yes, there will be more unicorns coming out of Nigeria and other parts of Africa. The reason is I know a lot of startups are busy trying to create value in Africa. And the truth about value is once you have value, you have a better chance of, getting paid for it. So I see a future where potentially you would see more startups get into that status eventually because they've created value over time. So I'm quite hopeful about that, yes.
Do you have an approximation of what that valuation is for you? You said your last raise pushed you over the line. What is it at this point approximately?
It's hard to say right now, but as at the last valuation, we were about $1 billion, which is what makes a unicorn, obviously. But things have changed between now and then, obviously, between then and now. And we're still creating value. We're still trying to expand into other countries. There's still a lot of work to be done. But right now, I can't give you a specific value of what the valuation will be. But I know, or at least I'm confident, that by the time we execute all of the initiatives we have, we should be getting into multiples of billions, hopefully. But this is me being optimistic, but I can't give you a specific value right now.
Does that mean that you're profitable?
Yes, we're profitable. The truth is we've always been profitable, even before we went into building a banking solution. When we were still servicing the banks, we were profitable. The moment we moved into banking, and we've remained profitable. In our last raise, right, we were profitable before the raise and we're still profitable. So ultimately, like I mentioned earlier, we want to provide value for both the investors and our customers. For our customers, we're building solutions to help them succeed. For our investors, we want to give them a good return on their investments. So we try to run a very efficient business model to ensure that we remain profitable regardless of what happens, because that is why you're in business, to make profits. So yes.
I imagine then, Felix, you have to be quite strategic about your expansion plans. I know earlier, or just a few months ago, you announced you were looking to expand into the UK and Kenya, quite far from Nigeria. Can you just give us some insight into the progress on those plans?
Yeah. So you still have opportunities in Nigeria, obviously. So we're not overlooking Nigeria as a market. There's still a lot to be done, and we're pushing for that. But I think we've gotten to a stage where we're quite confident that the value we've created in Nigeria can be useful in other parts of the world. And Kenya is the first African country we're breaking into. I mean, you mentioned it already. We just closed the acquisition of Sumac Microfinance Bank, which will allow us to roll out some of the values we've built over time into Kenya. And last year we rolled out Moniepoint in the UK. Moniepoint is a remittance product for Nigerians in diaspora to enable you send money home, right? Now, as we expand into other African countries, we will also be expanding the reach in Moniepoint, because if you have Nigerians in diaspora, you will also have Kenyans in diaspora, probably Tanzanians in diaspora, and all of that. So basically, we want to make sure that Africans in diaspora have a means of sending money home seamlessly. So the same payment infrastructure that we've built in Nigeria that has been powering all of our customers will be extended into all of these markets. And ultimately, the goal is to capture as many markets in Africa as possible, and ultimately to be one of the largest financial institutions in the continent.
For up-and-coming startups, Felix, do you think that strategy works for them as well? Because, you know, we talk quite a bit about the opportunity that sits with the diaspora globally. How would you advise maybe other fintech startups that are watching?
So I think there are lots of opportunities in Africa, within fintech and even outside of fintech, right? For me, I'll try to look at it fundamentally. And the fundamental thing is, when you build a valuable product, when you have value to offer, you have a better chance of succeeding, right? I mean, people would say you need to also make noise. And there's value in making noise, but hype can only get you so far. It will probably open the door for you, but to sit on the table or to sit at the table, you need to have significant value to offer. So my advice for any founder who is watching is focus on building value. And it's hard to say if the strategy that Moniepoint has taken will work for every other person or not. I think people will figure out what will work for them based on their own business realities. But ultimately, if you have a valuable product, if you have value to offer, you'll stand a better chance of succeeding. So focus, hunker down, build this value. And if you think you need to expose this value to other parts of the world, by all means, go ahead. But I would say Africa has a lot to offer in that regard.
And how do you measure value, right? It depends on which investor you're speaking with. So I wonder what metric you think is maybe most critical or has been most beneficial to Moniepoint's success.
Yeah, so for me personally, I think value starts from making your customers happy, having a satisfied customer, right? It doesn't matter what you've built. If your customers are not happy, if your customers are not satisfied, you're wasting your time, because they are the ones paying the bills. Even the investors, the return on investment comes from the customers. Ultimately, the customers are the big boss, right? So fundamentally, if you want to define what value means, it's simply put, are your customers happy with your product? Are you solving a key pain point for these customers, right? And the moment that fundamental aspect is taken care of, the rest will follow. So you start by making sure that your customers are sorted, you've tackled their pain points, they are happy using your products, they are loyal to you because you've solved their problems. Then the rest starts, taking shape. You know, how much you make out of it, how much return on investment you give to your investors, and what kind of satisfaction you get from it, all of that follow, making sure that your customers get what they deserve. So for me, that's the way I try to look at it, and that is what also drives the way we build at Moniepoint. We try to make sure that the customer is the number one component that you have to first of all address. Then you start looking at every other thing. The moment you've built a good product that serves your customers and that solves their problems, things will start falling into place. So yes.
The world is your oyster. Felix, you mentioned we talked about the two markets that you're expanding to. I wonder if there's other markets that you're looking at. You mentioned Tanzania, potentially Ethiopia. Are those discussions that you're currently having?
So obviously Kenya is just one of the markets that we're going to go into. At the moment, we're still having conversations on the other markets that will follow suit. But not far into the future, the clarity will be there, and you will see it. I mean, when the Kenyan Day happened, it was public knowledge. Everybody heard about it. So when the next market is, when we're ready to break into the next market, you'll obviously hear about it.
So not today, is what you're saying. And Felix, maybe really quick, because I think quite a lot of startups are watching, again, Moniepoint potentially as a model for success. Ultimately, there is the end of the line, or maybe the beginning for some companies, and that's the IPO. Is that something that Moniepoint is thinking about?
So exit is something we have. I think right now we're still discussing it, to be fair. IPO is one route. There are other routes, but there are a few things to consider. The size of the company will somewhat affect which route you eventually go for, right? If you become really, really big, the chances of acquisition might be slimmer. It doesn't mean it will be impossible, but the chances of acquisition will be slimmer. But there's a certain size you'll be in, it becomes a viable option for you. For Moniepoint right now, I think all of these options are still on the table, some more than the other. But I'd say within the next couple of years, it will become very, very clear which direction will be more suitable for us. But these options are all on the table.
So at this point, you haven't yet figured out what is the route that you want to move forward with?
No, not yet.
Okay. And what about, last question, any expansion plans outside of the continent? Outside of the UK, of course, as well.
Yeah. So, I mentioned the goal is to build something for Africans in diaspora, which means Africans in other parts of the world. We started with the UK. There's a chance that we would consider other countries within Europe, maybe the US and Canada. But all of these are still in the pipeline. Clarity will come over time, basically.